Welcome to the show. Welcome to Thursday. He's Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. It's IB Nation Sports Talk. Looking for a good one today. It's been crappy here all day in South Bend. Rain and overcast and just kind of blah, stuck inside most of the day. Can't do much of anything. How's Cleveland today, my
Same
son?
old, same old, same old. Rainy,
Still rocking?
dark skies. Took a nap after work. That's how dreary it was. Trying to wake back up. Ready to go. Got some Dane Brugler draft evaluation.
We are ready to rock it today with some NFL draft talk. Dane Brugler's draft evaluations. He put out the beast, and we're going to get to that. We've got some both Notre Dame men's and women's basketball news. Markus Burton, Nat Marshall. We'll save that for rapid fire. Some other topics as well in rapid fire. We've got a lot that we're going to get to there. Super chat. Thank you, DK. At what
3 days in a row. $5 super
chat from him.
$5 super chat.
Gentleman of doubt.
I noticed the little things.
He says, at what point does a fan cross that line and become a stage 5 clinger, asking for a friend? What does this mean? Like what?
A stage 5 clinger is like a stalker.
I know what a stage 5 clinger is, but like what's the intent of this question? That's what I want to know.
I think he's that is in regards to Salty and his obsession with the great one.
Makes sense. Good call. Good call.
Listen, I just woke up from a nap and I'm dialed in already.
I guess. You made the most of your nap. Well, NFL draft is 2 weeks today, if you can believe it. Seems like we've been kind of waiting forever for that to roll around. And you mentioned Dane Brugler. He's from The Athletic. He's put together his annual draft guide known as The Beast. He broke down hours and hours of game film, used NFL verified testing information to crank out analysis for more than 1,900 draft prospects. Think about that. 1,900 draft prospects are in this guide. And let me see here real quick. 19 equals. There are not 1,900 players who will be drafted. There are not even like 400 players will be drafted. So there's a lot of work that goes into this. But we're going to take a look at some of the stuff that he said about some of the Notre Dame prospects. The evaluation is obviously very detailed. We're not going to read everything that he says, otherwise we'd be here till midnight, basically. But we're going to get into some of the meat and potatoes, though. Anthony says, another Vince no-show. Has IB instituted a no nose ring policy, and is Vince having trouble removing his? So apparently the word from Vince today, he was supposed to be, as an administrator at Penn High School, he was supposed to be working a baseball game today, the administrative representative at a baseball game. It got rained out. He texted me and said that he told you that he'd be willing to do the show tonight since he's been gone all week, but you gave him the Heisman. Said, no, I'm doing the show.
Yeah, I gave him the stiff arm. We had already talked about this show. I liked the concept of the show. Okay, I thought it would be fun to get into, the draft breakdown and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I said, you know what, Vince, I'll be good. And then he said, okay, I owe you a couple shows, so we'll get it figured out. Don't worry about it.
Good. Maybe he's listened to this week to the less than.
Oh, he said he's been listening. That's why he heard the jabs. I told him they were all in good fun.
John asking if Vince has a nose ring. I don't think Vince has any. I don't think he has any piercings, body, ink. I don't think Vince has anything other than that naturally black hair that grows on him.
No, he's got a stud in his nose. You just can't see it.
I haven't noticed it before. He's been covering it up with one of those little bandages.
It's nude
Thanks for the
color.
Super chat, Anthony. Appreciate it. I'll save this question from Matt Lee regarding UConn women's basketball. That would be interesting.
Wow, another super chat.
Yeah, I know. All right, let's jump into it. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Okay. You want to start with Sam Hartman?
Yeah, I like the order that you presented in the email. I think
you like the breakdown, total breakdown. You good with it?
I do.
Okay, all right. I'm glad you favor it. So Sam Hartman, according to Dane Brugler in The Beast, is rated as the number 12 quarterback in this draft. He has a sixth or seventh round grade. So the way Brugler did it, there's a ton of information. If you you haven't seen it, like if you got a subscription to The Athletic, I highly recommend, especially if you're into the draft, just jump in there and check out The Beast, because it comes with your subscription to The Athletic. There's so much in there, but he lists strengths, he lists weaknesses, he has all the stats and all that stuff, obviously, and then kind of a final synopsis as well. So let's just kind of I'll let you, with each guy that we talk about, you can kind of tell me what stands out from the strengths. I'll go with what stands out from the weaknesses, and we'll kind of debate maybe where we think each of these Notre Dame guys is going to end up. So strengths for Sam Hartman. When you look at Dane Brugler's write-up, what jumps out at you about it?
Yeah, the number one thing that stuck out to me when looking at Sam Hartman's strengths is, and I'll probably use more or less direct quotes here, but the one that stuck out was doesn't require perfect base or balance to throw with placement, short or deep. Basically saying, Sam Hartman can throw from, on awkward angles, off balance, unbalanced on the rollout, whatever it might be. And that stuck out to me. I guess it was something that I didn't necessarily, I wouldn't say notice at Notre Dame, but I didn't necessarily think it was a strength of his, right? Like I do remember seeing it. And I think that was the other cool part of it. Like I started kind of having recall. Obviously you're not just going to sit here and have a video library on hand.
Total recall.
Yeah. But that was the one that stuck out. I didn't think that was something that was a strength of Sam Hartman's, nor did I think it was something that quarterbacks wanted to really do in general. Like I've always thought that, you're not supposed to kind of be leaning, one way or the other. It's a nice stable base with good follow through. But it said that, to kind of add on to that, it basically said he can throw from, any position and hit his layups, essentially. Like he's got really good touch on the ball for not really delivering with a stable base at all times.
I kind of that is good, because again, it's probably not what I would have led off his list of strengths, which Dane Brugler does, but he mentions his football IQ, which I think is obviously really high, but he also talks about it in his strengths, the fact that he says he delivers upfield. He delivers to the upfield shoulder, giving his receivers a chance at yards after catch, and stands tall in the pocket until the final second, allows routes to develop. I think that, those are obviously two very good strengths, but the yak thing, and that's different than what we've seen from some different quarterbacks. I think that there was a lot more yak this year for Irish receivers with Sam Hartman back there than we've seen over the last few years. So I think that's pretty important as well.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to just good ball placement, putting the ball on the wide receiver's upfield shoulder, hitting them in stride, and allowing them to, to really go to work without the ball. And then you brought up the high IQ. I really like that, that what was highlighted in there too is Sam Hartman's ability to stand in the pocket until literally the very last microsecond, right? Like the ability, even when the pocket is absolutely collapsing around him. And that could be, good or bad. It felt like at times Sam Hartman just needed to pull trigger and get out of the pocket and escape. But Brugler saw it, more as a strength. Like he's going to let the play develop until the very last second, even if he knows he has someone bearing down on him.
Look, and we're going to talk about his weaknesses here in a second, but I think that those particular things that we mentioned as his strength for someone in Sam Hartman's position, who again has a late round grade, I think that those are the kind of things that can, he went to two academic institutions. He went to Wake Forest. He went to Notre Dame. So obviously he's a bright guy, but that football IQ as well. I think his ability to rapidly absorb information and be able to put it to use, and the fact that he does have that high IQ, I think that those will go a long way in his chances to stick on an NFL roster down, for the long term, basically.
Yeah.
In terms of the weaknesses that Brugler mentioned, the things that popped at me the most, the biggest one is the one that he leads off with. Middling arm power is what Brugler says about Sam Hartman. Doesn't consistently drive through his hips or follow through. And he also mentions his below average ball security and the fact that he had 24 career fumbles in college. A problem for an average footed mover, as he says. And look, again, I think that for where Sam Hartman is, the intangibles will help him out quite a bit. But in terms of how high this guy gets drafted, like middling arm power, it's not going to help him out very much. I think that as much as anything is why he's got such a low late round grade. What do you think?
Yeah. And, you talked about the middling arm power. That is something that I thought was, kind of what has been following him around. The weakness that I guess stuck out more so to me was his ability or inconsistent decision-making process, often leading, to making the wrong, throw or read, essentially. And I thought that was, when we talked about Sam Hartman coming into Notre Dame, I thought that was something that he was going to be really good at.
I did too.
And then when you start to kind of think back or reflect a little bit, we often, and I'll take, I'll raise my hand on this one as well. Like, we got so caught up in blaming maybe young wide receivers, injured wide receivers, first-time offensive coordinator. But it definitely seems like Sam Hartman contributed to that cocktail at times of just not necessarily making the right read, even if a good play was drawn up. And then that was something I didn't expect out of Sam Hartman's game, considering how long he's been playing, right? I just thought that he would be better at maybe reading some of the defenses pre to post snap and getting into essentially the right throw or right read.
And I think that it was more pronounced against the better competition, right?
Yeah,
like that.
And that's really when it came out.
When they played Ohio State, you saw kind of a different looking Sam Hartman out there, like a guy who maybe was a little bit confused and just seeing things late compared to some of the competition that they had played to that point. And that's obviously an issue as well when you're trying to make it professionally, and everybody's really good. Overall, Brugler said he compares Hartman to Greg Maddux. He says he's a Greg Maddux type quarterback. It's funny because we were kind of talking about Greg Maddux and pitching and stuff like that the other way. Average velocity and drive power in his arm, but his feel for accuracy when he makes the right read makes him effective. He says he offers the toughness and intangibles to earn a number 2 or 3 quarterback role on a depth chart. So he's got a 7th round projection, rated the 12th quarterback overall. Do you think that Hartman outperforms that? Will he go higher in the draft than what Brugler is predicting, or do you think he even ends up being undrafted free agent?
So remind me that the NFL draft is 7 rounds, right? There's no 8th round.
Correct.
I wanted to make sure I had that correct.
7th round is it. Yep.
Yeah. So, assuming, here's kind of the math of it. If you assume 2 quarterbacks are going to be drafted every round, that's, round 14. So as long as you're a top 15 quarterback, there's a good chance that you're going to get drafted. But again, that assumes that there's going to be 2 quarterbacks per round. And I really just don't know how many teams are out there looking to draft a backup quarterback. I feel like guys who draft, or teams that draft quarterbacks in the draft, are often drafting quarterbacks because they believe they have a shot to be the starter. And if that doesn't pan out, they'd end up to be a backup. I just don't know what team is out there necessarily going, what quarterback can we draft here to potentially fill a roster spot, be a backup and a third string? Because I just don't think that Sam Hartman is a starting level quarterback in the NFL right now. And so, again, I don't know what team is going to want to roll the dice on a pick like that just to potentially get, stability at the back. You can go sign a backup quarterback. Yeah. There's tons of backup quarterbacks proven on tons of NFL rosters. So I don't see him getting drafted, but I know he'll get picked up and be on someone's roster by the time, NFL camp starts.
I mean, he's not a guy who projects as a starter. And I think Antoine's got a perfect read on this. He says he'll be a 10-plus year backup who can be very profitable, i.e. Chase Daniels. And that's my comparison. I think we've compared him to Chase Daniels before. His hope is to show enough in camp, stick around, at least make the practice squad. And if you're the number 3 quarterback, you're going to be on the practice squad. Stick around. If the team gets in a pinch, you get some injuries, just like what's his name? Like DeVito with the Giants, or the guy with the Bears. Like, you get your opportunity when a quarterback gets hurt, and you come in and you show that you can at least adequately run the offense without making any major flaws. Maybe you get lucky, and at the very least, you keep your team in the game. If not even, maybe you happen to pull out a win, and that lets you stick around for a while. You do little things and that's exactly what Chase Daniel did. I think that's what Sam Hartman is. I think, maybe, like teams like the 49ers, the Rams, Tampa, maybe, like we saw, what's his name? Why can't I think of his name now? I'm seeing his face. The guy that we saw at the pro day, the Cliff Kingsbury, like we saw Kingsbury chatting up Hartman, at pro day and stuff like that. They're obviously going to go after a higher end guy first. I don't know what exactly the quarterback depth chart looks like, but again, I think his intelligence and intangibles more than anything will at least let him have a chance. Well, it'll give him a chance to hang around because he'll be able, to go out there, absorb stuff quickly and show it on the field. The skill set's never going to be starting quarterback level.
So, I saw this yesterday and it got brought up back today. It says if Ian Book can be a 4th round pick, Sam definitely isn't going undrafted. A lot of people, you have to compare Ian Book's draft class to Sam Hartman's draft class. I think this draft class in quarterbacks is uber talented.
And what the quarterback situation is for each team as well,
Right.
Because again, you're talking about drafting a guy is going to be a backup.
And the thing about Ian Book is he consistently ran a system offense at Notre Dame for X amount of years. Sam Hartman ran a gimmicky offense his entire career and then basically tried to learn more of an NFL style, offense with the first-year offensive coordinator in one season. Like, as much as you want to maybe not mock Ian Book, but I feel Ian Book was actually more prepared coming out of college for the NFL than Sam Hartman was. Now, do I think Sam Hartman has a higher ceiling, down the road? I do definitely think so. But coming out of college, Ian Book was definitely a safer pick because he knew how to run an NFL-style offense. And that's just, it was a system offense that he ran at Notre Dame.
Yeah. Joe says his phone's messing up tonight. Side note. I don't know if you've got like the new Apple, whatever the stupid thing is, but ever since I got my new iPhone in the fall, it has just been, it's a train wreck, man. I hate that phone.
I got my new one and I haven't had any issues.
Look, we're not saying that teams don't draft backup quarterbacks. It's just that he's rated as the 12th quarterback and the odds are against him. He could get drafted in the 7th round,
Well, a lot of teams
I think the odds are greater that he's going to end up being an undrafted free agent, though.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, a lot of teams draft quarterbacks with the hopes that they're going to be a starter. I just don't see Sam Hartman's timetable to be an immediate starter in the next 1 to 2 years. And that's, yeah.
Look, and Sean Payton, where he drafted
Ian Book,
Drew Brees was still around, right? And Sean Payton was still, kind of like feeling himself, like I think Sean Payton thought, this is a guy who could potentially, again, he's got like the Notre Dame thing, so he's smart, all these, he won a lot of games at Notre Dame. I think that he thought that, maybe within a couple years down the road, maybe Ian Book could turn into something. And so they drafted him where they did. But it became obvious pretty quickly that was not a good investment in Ian Book with a 4th round draft pick. Just look where he is right now. He's still bouncing on his 3rd different team in Kansas City. All right, so Audric Estimé. Dane Brugler rates him as the number 7 running back with a fourth round grade, number 98 player overall. Apparently, Henry is a big fan of Audric Estimé. So, what jumps out to you about the strengths that Dane Brugler lists for Estimé?
Yeah, the thing that stuck out about Audric Estimé specifically was his rumbling and urgent acceleration that ignites explosive plays, because you don't expect, when you see Audric Estimé step on the field and you see this big, broad, yoked up running back, just how Brugler described him, the last thing that you, I think, would be worried about is what I was just talking about, his urgent and very quick, accelerations that allow him to just ignite and get going. And so that is what I would say is, Audric Estimé's maybe most underwhelming strength, or the one that you don't necessarily, think of when you see him on paper, or you see him on film, is just, you see this big, strength kind of downhill gap scheme type running back. But then he still has the light toes to be able to, hit the gap and accelerate at the drop of a hat.
Yeah. To me, what jumped out is, he just talks about the rumbling and the urgent acceleration igniting the explosive plays. That's exactly, what it is when he's talking about, because he talks about him being a linebacker build, yoked up arms and chest and a thick lower half and all that stuff. I mean, there's obviously a lot to like about Audric Estimé, but, that's kind of the biggest, thing that stands out to me about what Brugler's saying. Also, the fact that he's got just 7% body fat for somebody that big. And I mean, that's what stood out, like seeing him at Pro Day, because he decided to do it, in like the spandex shorts and no shirt and stuff like that. And that was a chiseled man that was standing out there running that 40. So he's very lean for a guy who's as big as he is. I will say that. In terms of the weaknesses that Brugler lists, the things that stood out to me: inconsistent start-stop skills that hurt his ability to make sudden changes. And it says he has the natural build and strength to be an asset in pass protection, but he can be caught flat-footed, needs to refine his punch timing. I found it odd that he lists that as one of his weaknesses, but, and maybe that's true, but I felt like just seeing how Audric Estimé was as a pass blocker, I thought that he did fairly well.
Yeah, I thought he did well in the pass blocking. Another weakness that he brought up was his, receiving skills. And it's like, who really cares? You're a running back, right? Like, I get it, you're going to catch an occasional ball out of the backfield, but Audric Estimé, addressed this. After his pro day, like, listen, guys, I didn't get many opportunities to catch the ball, so how can I really be judged on my overall receiving skills? And again, This is a running back, right? Like, he's going to catch an occasional screen or maybe a wheel route, or, whatever it might be. So I'm not really overwhelmed about that. The weakness that really caught my attention was the tightness of hips and show signs of rigidity. Like, I get it. He's big, but I don't know. I didn't really see him as someone who was super rigid or super tight. Like,
I didn't either.
I thought he was someone who moved like exceptionally well considering his size, right? And like, it's like, well, you kind of have to do a little bit of give and take. Like, obviously he's not going to be the most fluid guy in the world, but there's running backs out there who would love to have his strength and have his downhill presence. So like by
definition, a bigger running back is naturally going to have some of that, because there's
look at Jerome Bettis when he ran. He wasn't the most fluid or sexy guy at all times, but he got the job done. And I don't know. It feels like
even like Henry, like he's not like. He's big and powerful, but he doesn't necessarily have swivel hips.
Right.
But
that's a really good comparison, because Henry also can accelerate so quickly. Like, once he hits the second level, he can be gone, right? But I don't know, it just felt like a lot of the weaknesses on Audric Estimé are very ticky-tack. It just feels like for some reason people are often maybe looking to find something wrong with Audric Estimé, and it's just, it started with not being a Doak Walker finalist, and then it just kind of continued on. I feel like Audric Estimé is getting undersold, to be honest with you. And maybe I'm wrong, but this guy is a professional at the end of the day.
I mean, the point you made about the lack of receiving opportunities, that's not his fault. When the ball was thrown his way, he would catch the ball. And I thought that, like, when you looked at what he did at Pro Day, he really, showed himself pretty well at Pro Day with some of the things that he was able to do, from a pass catching situation. And again, I talked about Sierra Wood a few years back. Like, when Sierra was out there trying to show that he could catch the ball, it literally sounded like a shotgun hitting his palms every time the ball hit. It just like echoed, throughout the center over there. Like, it was so loud. But Estimé has really soft hands, I think, and I think that is a really underrated part of his game that teams are going to like once they get him into, rookie camp and all that different stuff in training camp and see exactly what he can do. They're going to find out that this is a guy that we can actually use on the field. I think
Audric Estimé is going to end up in someone's camp and they're going to be like, how did he get to us? What are these lingering issues, quote unquote issues, that this guy has? Because I mean, like Antoine said here, for a guy that lacks fluidity and nimbleness, he had no problem jumping over guys and continuing in stride. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Again, I don't know.
And he hurdled a trash can, at the Pro Day and kept on going. So, yeah. Look, again, guys, like, we want to keep I'm not saying that no quarterback has been drafted in the 7th round. Okay. I'm just saying it's maybe Sam Hartman does get drafted in the 7th round. Quibbling over whether or not he's going to get drafted in the 7th round doesn't matter. Like, I think I mentioned the 49ers. Like, I could see the 49ers taking a flyer on Hartman in the 7th round because of, like, that system and what they do and the fact that it's a game manager system.
Yeah, Brock Purdy is not the right example because any other roster, he's not even a starter right now. And someone just brought up the fact of Kyron Williams and was agreeing with me how Notre Dame didn't really use him in the passing game, and that's the thing. Like, in the NFL, they're not going to put Audric Estimé out there. A lot of teams use a 2-back running rotation. You have a power back and you have more of like a scat back. Audric Estimé isn't going to be your running back catching passes out of the backfield. It's just as simple as that. He's going to be your downhill runner and your finisher in the 4th quarter, like he's always been. So, again, I find some of these critiques on Audric to be really blown out of proportion.
I concur. Joe says when Estimé goes to the Cowboys, these two guys are going to be smiling from ear to ear. You're not going to be able, like, one, don't get my expectations up. 2, if that happens, I'm not going to shut up for a long time. I'm going to be
very happy.
Very happy. Very happy. Trust me. He's got a 3rd or 4th round grade. Any chance that he slips past that? Where do you think he ends up going?
I think that projection is spot on. I don't see him going in the 5th. I don't see him. He could slip to the 5th round, but I think 3 or 4 is where I think it's going to be 4th round by the time it's all said and done.
The problem for us as Cowboys fans, they have a 1st round pick, a 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick, and then it drops to like the 6th round or something like that. I think they don't have mid-round picks.
3rd rounder, but all right, I got to change my answer. 3rd round.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, fingers crossed, but with our luck, they'll end up with freaking Blake Corum or something like that.
They're drafting a running back. It's just a matter of who is it going to be.
Yeah, who and where. That's exactly right. That's because, that's it. And again, like the Sam Hartman thing, I'll just leave the Sam Hartman thing, but I'll say this about Audric Estimé. I think that how high he goes depends on if a team wants that specific kind of back that we're talking about. Power back, big back, that kind of stuff. Who covets that kind of thing? Obviously, 2 teams that come to mind are Tennessee and Baltimore. Tennessee, though, with the new general manager getting rid of Vrabel, they got rid of Henry, obviously, as well. They might be going away from that sort of mindset, as successful as it has been over the last few years. So, I mean, obviously the Ravens jump out at you, but that's how high he ends up going. I think, if it all depends on what kind of team covets that kind of back. Like I've seen, all these mocks with the Cowboys taking the Texas running back in the second round and all that different kind of stuff. But Audric Estimé is going to make somebody very happy once he gets into camp, I think. How about Blake Fischer? Brugler rates him as the number 11 offensive tackle. He's got a third-round grade. He ranks him number 73 overall. I think that this was a really interesting write-up that Dane Brugler had on Blake Fischer. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And when you start looking, at the strengths, basically what it does is highlights a lot of what we talked about. Blake Fischer has, the arm length. He's got the measurable. He plays light on his feet. Especially for his big size, he's smooth in his more lateral shuffle movements. He's able to, transition nicely to work off counter moves. He's good in pass protection. The thing that I guess caught me the most off, or not the strength that I liked the most is his ability to fire off the ball in the run game and his ability to compete and finish off blocks. Because I think half the what a critique for Blake Fischer might be is his overall kind of laziness, right? Like sometimes he's not consistent, right? Like you want to see the best version of Blake Fischer day in and day out. And so for someone like Brugler to say, his ability to, consistently fire off in the run game and finish his blocks, I think that's a really good thing and something that a lot of NFL teams will fall in love with.
Fall in love with? Interesting.
Yeah, his ability to fire off in the run game and finish his blocks.
Yeah. The weaknesses that Brugler listed: high cut, too easily out-leveraged at the point of attack, underdeveloped body control and technique, spends too much time on the ground, inconsistent depth with his pass pro landmarks, struggles to recover, laid hands, doesn't properly utilize his length and timing to establish meaningful contact, uneven results achieving run angles on the move, gets top heavy as a run blocker and finds his head overextended past his toes. I mean, these are all things we've kind of talked about with Blake Fischer before. And it is, it's all stuff that can be improved. But as I've said plenty of times before, to me, it's a reason why he should have stayed in college for one more year, because college is where you work on that stuff and improve it. Not once you get to the NFL. It's a lot tougher as you're trying to get, playing time and continue to do that. And it's also why I think he's better suited for guard in the NFL than he is at tackle.
Yeah. The thing that caught me off, he's definitely, he cannot with his, he's just too undeveloped right now to be a tackle. But the weakness that really, raised my eyebrows was underdeveloped body control and spends too much time on the ground. I feel like that's the last thing you want to hear in an evaluation. It spends too much time on the ground as an offensive lineman. You know what I mean? Like, you're the one that's protecting. You're not the one firing out and trying to get past the offensive lineman.
The ground is the last place you're supposed to be.
Right. You're supposed to be sending guys to the ground, essentially. So I really, that's the weakness that stuck out to me. I was like, wow, I felt like that's a little harsh even to say the guy spends too much time on the ground.
Yes, I concur. But Brugler does say Fischer will entice evaluators with his size, complete skills, foot quickness, and drive them crazy with his inconsistent balance technique and timing. So, again, like this, he's got a third-round grade, and you see his name coming up in a lot of these mock drafts. Do you think that he is a third-round guy? I feel like maybe he goes, at best late third round, if not maybe early to mid fourth round.
I think Audric Estimé should be a higher draft pick than Blake Fischer.
I do too.
And so that's to hear that he's kind of more securely a third round projection kind of had me confused. But I guess let me ask you this. If you're Blake Fischer, what do you think is better for your overall game? Coming back to Notre Dame or and working on your game, or being drafted by a team and then specifically kind of molding you into what they want on their offense?
What they want.
You know what I mean? It's the same developmental year at the end, but at least you're in the NFL, and at least you're working towards, okay, I might not be a starter this season, but they can teach me and mold me into whatever they need me to be on that offensive line. And I think that is more so maybe the perspective that Blake Fischer and his camp is taking is, well, we already know that he still needs to develop, so might as well develop under an NFL team that is literally going to train him to be what they want.
And if they're going to move him to guard, then what difference does it make? Because if he comes back to Notre Dame, he's working on tackle skills and technique and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, you're making a paycheck. You're not going to get as big a paycheck, but like, I think that it's also fair to say, and I get the perspective that you're talking about, and I don't completely disagree with it. But if he comes back and improves in the way that we're talking about, then you're talking about potential high second, if not even a first round draft pick type guy, because he was talked about entering last season as a potential first round type guy, but now he's being talked about as a third round guy. So people have seen the talent there, but there are specific things that he needs to work on. Tyler says, do you think that having 3 offensive line coaches at Notre Dame affected Blake's development? I mean, it could have. Especially
no, I'm going to say no, because the stuff that is highlighted as his weaknesses is more not intangible.
Joe Alt had 3 stuff. Joe Alt had 3 offensive line coaches too.
That's true.
Didn't affect him.
Yeah, we're not even going to talk about Joe Alt because we already know he's a top 10.
Yeah,
pick.
I didn't include Joe Alt here because we all know he's going top 10. Yeah, exactly.
Why waste our time on what we know is already going to happen?
That's right.
That dude's a bona fide stud.
Yep. Thank you very much, DK. We share the same sentiment on that one. And just going back to Estimé, Antoine says you're not drafting Estimé as a pass-catching running back. No, you're not. But the pass-catching skills are going to be a nice bonus for whatever team drafts him, because that will be there as well. I'm not, he's probably a guy who will get, in the NFL, 15 to 20 receptions per season. And that's like a solid average. High end for an NFL receiver is up between like 45 and 60 receptions for a season. But I think Estimé is a guy who can pop out and get you 15 to 20 a year. And again, when you're drafting a guy of that build and everything else that comes with him, it's just a nice bonus to have. And I think that it'll just kind of, it'll make some teams happy when they see, oh, wow, this guy can do this as well. It does nothing. It's just a kind of another tool in the tool belt that he's got going for him. All right, a couple linebackers, J.D. Bertrand and Marist Liufau. And these were, I think, interesting grades and write-ups as well. Dane Brugler has – what? Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
yes, you did.
We'll get into the Bertrand weakness is another just like, dude, what are you talking about right now?
Okay. So he's got Bertrand ranked the number 12 linebacker, 5th round grade. Liufau 3 spots behind him at number 15. He's got a 5th, 6th round grade. So what do you want to do? You want to just jump into the weaknesses that he listed since you kind of led off with that, or do you want to talk about his strengths?
No, I want to give Bertrand his praise before we start diving into these weaknesses. So when talking about Bertrand, the main thing that Brugler highlights is his ability to make quick reads and trigger downhill, and his ability to throw his pads into the lead blocker or the pulling blocker, to congest the hole, essentially, to take on the blocker and do his responsibility. As a linebacker, I mean, that's like that. As an inside linebacker, what more can you ask for? A guy who makes quick reads, he's quick downhill, and his ability to throw himself into, any sort of lead blocker, pull blocker, like that is like 90% of being a linebacker right there. Quick reads, quick downhill, and then if you're not in on the play, you're at least blowing up the blocker, right? Like that is I don't know what more you can ask for out of an inside linebacker.
No, I agree. I completely agree, and he talks about his instincts, his quick reads and all this different kind of stuff. I think he's got a lot of strengths, but how about the weaknesses? Missed tackles, usually a result of impatience, Brugler says, leading him to leave his feet early, slide off the ball, needs to be more efficient as a block shedder, tends to be more focused on the violence of the pop instead of timing of the stack. What do you think about that little breakdown there?
Yeah, like the missed tackles, I agree with. I think that's, he's got to be able to strike the body and just, take the runner down. You can't slide off the runner. I guess the weakness, and I've gone on this, rant before that really set me off, is he brings up the short arms again, right? But if you bring up but if you bring up the short arms and then your following sentences, missed tackles are usually a result of his impatience, then what does it matter if he has short arms? Because he's not missing tackles because he can't wrap up. He's missing tackles because of his impatience. And so it's like, I felt like those were very counterproductive. The only thing that the short arms would be a negative for is he can't get his arms in passing lanes. That's the only thing. He can't get his arms in throwing windows or passing lanes, but he can still get his reroutes. He can still get his bumps that allow safeties and corners to recover. But again, you can't bring up his deficiencies in tackling and it's not a result of these short arms that everyone is so worried about.
Well, and then Brugler in his final analysis says that Bertrand is sawed off, and that's a quote, sawed off with only adequate range and coverage, but he processes well with the play recognition and skills, competitive makeup that'll endear him to NFL coaches. I mean, I agree with that, but like the sawed off thing, I mean, he is on the shorter end for what you're seeing with NFL linebackers right now. He's kind of the last of that body type, really that Brian Kelly recruited at Notre Dame. When you think about it, and instead of the longer frame, ability to fill out and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he pretty much maxed out the frame. So 5th round grade. Do you think that's where he ends up going? I could see him going a little bit later, to be honest.
No, I think 5th round fits him because of just his instincts. I know he has some deficiencies here and there, but JD Bertrand is a true leader. He's a true Mike linebacker. He's instinctive. He's very smart, very high football IQ. He's very fast downhill. And they're not going to. This is the thing. It's in the end, we're going to talk about Marist here in a second. The thing is in the NFL, you have defenses put you into a specific role. They're not going to ask JD Bertrand to be a guy that has to play a lot in coverage. His main responsibility, would be kind of a guy who's in there for the run game. If it gets 3rd and long, you're not going to see JD Bertrand, on the field. So I just like I think he's a really solid Mike linebacker, and I think he's undervalued, and I think he's going to, when he gets into an NFL camp, I think he's going to be better than what, where he gets drafted, essentially. So while he might be a 5th or 6th round linebacker, I think he's going to eventually start to play like a 4th or 3rd round linebacker.
So you think he'll stick around and have a chance at playing for a while?
I do. So I just think he like Brugler said, he has, the hardest thing as a linebacker is your ability to read and get downhill. And that's what he's best at. And so I think you combine that with high football IQ, he's going to be an effective linebacker for a while.
Now flip it around to Marist Liufau, who Brugler ranks as a 5th, 6th round guy. So, again, 3 spots behind Bertrand. He's got Bertrand number 12, Marist at number 15. What do you think about the strengths that Brugler lists?
Yeah, we talked about, he checks off the boxes for frame, for arm length, for strength, the first step acceleration, his always, motor. He's always running around at 100 miles per hour. And, his ability to compete with an aggressive mentality. And he shows an understanding of, how to understanding of read concepts. He plays gap sound in the run game. And I think that the number one thing that Brugler highlighted is he's a very effective blitzer. And I think that's what we've talked about, mainly with Marist Liufau, is I think he'd mix
bloodthirsty tackler. Brugler
yes.
Said. Bloodthirsty.
But yeah, that's going to be Marist Liufau's game. I don't think you're going to see him. I think you might see him play linebacker in some more nickel packages, but if he's going to be in a base defense, I like him rushing off the edge, mixing into some sort of blitz scheme. I don't see him as a true down-to-down linebacker. He's a linebacker that has a purpose, right? You're putting him in there because you want a matchup of him guarding someone, potentially in a man situation. You like his ability to mix in a 4-man or 5-man stunt, but that's where he's going to make his money. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be, an excellent run fit linebacker. He's not going to be a guy, who's again in the game down to down. He's going to be a very strategic type linebacker. There's going to be a purpose for him.
I found it interesting though that Brugler said that he plays gap sound in the run game. I don't know.
So I think what he means by gap sound is a lot of people don't like. People wanted Marist Liufau to make all of these tackles in the run game, but Marist Liufau still did his job in the run. Like basically what he's saying is like when offenses run or when defenses run more of like a gap type defense, even if Marist Liufau isn't making the tackle, he's still getting to his gap and lane and allowing the run play to bounce to, wherever it's supposed to go to. So while he's not making the tackle, he's still doing his job in the gap run game.
Sound.
Yeah, and he's allowing the run to basically spill out to someone else that it was designed to spill out to.
Yeah. Brugler does point out that Liufau's frenetic eyes lead to wasted steps and misplays. Missteps in space diminish his leverage as an alley defender, can be manipulated by motions and backfield action. And I mean, that's something that we, did see, it's like a whirling dervish out there. Like there's a lot of, motion and action, but not necessarily always part of the play. What did you think about, like he can be manipulated by motions and backfield action?
Marist Liufau is a prime example defensively of that is like voodoo right there. You never want to be the guy that's, tracking and following everything. And this is what we've talked about before, that we want to see on Notre Dame's offense to affect a player like Marist Liufau. You start running motions, you start running different formations, and then Marist Liufau is looking around, trying to figure out what's going on, and then boom, ball snaps, right? Like That's what they're talking about right there. Like Marist Liufau has to be calm in his study or his preparation. Essentially, he needs to know, okay, when I see motion, it's not the end of the world, right? Like I don't need to. The play's not imploding just because a motion is happening. He needs to stay calm, make his reads, make his adjustments, and be able to play on the fly, right? Like he can't be trying to figure things out and the ball be snapped.
Yeah. Brugler basically likes Liufau as a core 4 special teams guy in the NFL while he gets coached up for a chance at meaningful defensive snaps. And it just seems like body type that he's got, reserve linebacker, playing on all the special teams, all that kind of stuff, like Drake Bowen did last year and like Kingston Villiamo Asa is probably going to do this year. Like that's a role that Marist Liufau can jump into right away. And, it's pretty important with limited roster space on an NFL team, I think, too.
Yeah.
So do we see both of these guys getting drafted? Like people were asking before, how many guys for Notre Dame get drafted? I think it's probably 6 if both of these guys do. Is that kind of where you are?
No, I'm at 5.
You're at 5?
Yes.
All right, let's talk about Cam Hart, and then we'll talk about who your 5 are.
Okay.
Brugler's got him number 19 overall cornerback, 4th, 5th round grade. What do you think about his strengths?
Yeah, the number one thing that should be highlighted in Cam Hart's strengths is he made the freak list, right? And the freak list is like basically the guys who test out of this world, right? He's got the size, he's got the height, he's got the wingspan, he's got the speed. On-field GPS had him tracked at 23 miles per hour. He's got incredible balance. But I think the thing that stuck out to me in terms of strengths with Cam Hart is you would expect someone with that big of a frame to be kind of clumsy, right? And maybe get caught off guard here and there. But he talked about Cam Hart's ability to kind of regain his balance at an elite level, even if he gets, like we talked about, thrown off balance, or, maybe is because of his frame, he's just naturally a little bit more clumsy. But I think that, that goes a long way for someone like Cam Hart, the ability to kind of regain himself, considering how big he is, how fast he is, and really how good he is in coverages, in coverage. So I think that is, another one of his strengths. And I think another one is he can play press, he can play man, he can play zone. Like there's no weakness in terms of Cam Hart in coverage, right? And so I think that's also going to go a long way. His ability to play all types of coverage and his ability to recover on the fly and get back into kind of like that wide receiver's hip pocket.
Yeah, and I mean, a couple of things with his weaknesses, the fact that he talks about some false steps and stuff like that, he says can get him on his heels a little bit. And he says that he's inconsistent collecting himself to locate, make a play on the ball. And the fact that he had just 8 passes defended on 72 targets over the last 2 years. And also the fact that he did not have an interception over his final 32 college games. Now you can say, well, they weren't throwing at him or whatever. Like 8 passes defended in 72 opportunities and no interceptions. It's not like nobody ever threw the ball at Cam Hart. That is legit. I do think that it is worth pointing out. Like, what do you make of that, especially as you're trying to determine how a guy like Cam Hart translates to the NFL? Because I mean, I think that for starters, when you talk about the fact that he is on Bruce Feldman's freak list and there is great athletic ability and he is so long-limbed, like the long body and the long frame, which the NFL loves, like Dan, like he's a Dan Quinn type guy, like that's the kind of body
right.
Dan Quinn. So like, how do you sort of rectify those things?
But are you, I guess, kind of like emphasizing, the lack of interceptions or the lack of,
defended.
The thing is I think interceptions and batted balls, those kind of come naturally, right? And you can't really blame a guy for being good in coverage if the ball is overthrown, if the ball is, not where it's supposed to be, because that's a result of good coverage. I think naturally, like, I don't think interceptions are lucky, but I think that they're out.
There is some randomness to it sometimes.
Right. And that's what I mean. Like there's randomness to it. Right. And so I think naturally Cam Hart is going to see more interceptions as, quarterbacks or if he goes on the NFL, that just means better quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are going to be placing the ball better, they're going to be in tighter windows, etc. And so if the ball is on the wide receiver, that gives the cornerback a better chance for interceptions. Right. And so I just think that stuff naturally takes care of each other. I look at interceptions more as like a defensive stat as a whole, because the whole secondary has to do its job in order for an interception to happen, right? Because, you could say, oh, well, this guy caught this interception, but it could be because everyone else is covered, right? So the corner did his job, the safety did his job, and now the quarterback has to, maybe make a risky decision on his third option, and that guy gets an interception because everyone else did their job. So long story short, I don't really see that as a problem. I would be more infatuated again with his size, his length, and his speed and his ability to play all different types of coverage.
All right, so he's got a 4th, 5th round grade. I think I think that he's pretty firm in the 4th round. There seem to be a lot of people pretty high on Cam Hart, and I know, like, going to Notre Dame's pro day, there's some guys from the who cover the Colts who came up. I was talking to, and they were hoping to get to see Cam Hart do something, but they didn't get a chance. He didn't basically do anything. I think all he did was weigh in at pro day. But they were really high on Cam Hart from everything that they've seen of him. And they're thinking like, for the Colts, like 3rd, 4th round, somewhere around there, potentially, if he were to be available. So I mean, he's a lock to get drafted. It's just a matter of where. I don't think he falls to the 5th round, though. Do you?
No, I don't. Pre-draft, I do think, pre-Senior Bowl, I do think he was. But after Senior Bowl, after the way he tested, I think he's definitely a lock to go in the 4th round.
Yeah. I mean, Craig brings up his health. I mean, it is legit. And Brugler brought it up, like any guy who's had some injury history is, brought up in these write-ups and stuff like that. And the shoulder stuff is there. It is, it's like, it's a matter of, though, these teams get in there with their physicians and they check them out, x-rays and, do actual hands-on, physical and stuff like that. So, I mean, it'll be there, but again, it's not like you're taking him in the 1st or 2nd round. He's going to be a mid-round guy. he's going to be on a roster. And so from that aspect, I don't think that is going to greatly diminish his draft.
I think he's going to end up a Commander.
I would not be surprised
because of Dan Quinn's and the Redskins secondary. I can't believe I just said that after saying the Commanders. The Commanders secondary has been horrible, as of recent. And I think if you're looking to get better in the secondary, Cam Hart is a guy who fits Dan Quinn's mold, right? And Dan Quinn was also at Notre Dame's Pro Day. So there we go.
Yep, he was. But he also didn't get to see Cam Hart do anything just like everybody else. All right, Javontae Jean-Baptiste is the last one. Got a 7th round grade.
Ryan dropped a tidbit. Sorry. He said that Jordan Reed has Cam Hart as a 2nd round grade.
Interesting. He says he's a guy you respect. Okay. Well, I mean, I've seen him, some of the early mocks had him going like late 2nd round potentially here and there. But I think 3rd is more, again, like if you look at the Commanders, I don't think that they would take him high 2nd round, but they have 2 picks early in the 2nd round. I don't see him going in that range, but like late 2nd, I think is easily achievable for Cam Hart potentially.
This is I'll always say this. I would love to have a career in a meteorologist, a bracketologist, and a draft evaluator, because you know what? Everyone eats it up, everyone consumes it, loves it, but you're never right. You're probably more wrong than you are right, and you still get to be the guy, or the woman. You just get to be. There's never really any downside that comes with being so wrong. It's one of the professions where I feel like you can be majority wrong and not get criticized.
Ryan loves you right now. So Javontae Jean-Baptiste, Brugler points out, plays his tail off, pads the stat sheet with chase down pursuit plays, weaknesses, doesn't have a ton of power, finds himself past the pocket more times than you'd like. I mean, he's got a 7th round grade. He's right on that bubble. Like, what stands out to you from the Brugler write-up on Javontae?
I like that, he talks about he's quick out of his stance. He's got a variety of moves. He's got a really nice chop rip. He can show strength with good, good hands. Is good with, the hand wrist kind of control, being able to deflect blockers with that sort of stuff. And then just overall kind of his long stride. But I think the thing that stuck out to me most with JBB is he can be effective as a pass rusher, and he really, really got good in the run game, in my opinion. I think that is, he reminds me kind of like DeMarcus Lawrence for the Cowboys, right? Like, I think that's kind of a good comp, like good guy with good frame, good athleticism, can really, get to, rush the quarterback, but also is tremendous in the run game. He's able to squeeze down the line. He stays assignment sound. And I don't think, coming out of Ohio State, you would have said those things about him. So, yeah, that's kind of where I stand on him.
Yeah. Again, I think he's going to be on the bubble. Brugler talks about rigidity, lack of mass, and some of these different, says he doesn't have dynamic traits. He's rated as Brugler's number 25 edge rusher. So I think it's going to be tough, but I'm leaning toward undrafted free agent for Jean-Baptiste. So Michael says he expects 7 Notre Dame players are going to be drafted. So let's go through. Joe Alt, Cam Hart, Audric Estimé, Blake Fischer. Those 4 are locks, right?
Yeah.
So that leaves you with the 2 linebackers, Jean-Baptiste and Sam Hartman. So that's 4 more. So
I originally said 5, but my number, I don't know how. I think it's because he wasn't on our list that we were discussing today. I forgot about Joe Alt. So my number 6.
Okay. That's right.
Long story short, I don't think Hartman and Baptiste get drafted. I think everyone else does.
I'm leaning in that direction as well. And again, okay, if Sam Hartman goes in the 7th round, okay, great. It doesn't mean that much more. Like, you'd almost rather, like, if you go that far, you're almost better off just being an undrafted free agent, because then your agent gets to actually talk with teams and find a team that could be the potential best fit for you, So it's not the worst thing in the world. And everybody's whipping boy, Tony Romo, was an undrafted free agent, so it does work out for some of those guys. So, but I'm in, my number is 6 as well. Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am. I didn't think we'd go an hour talking about these draft evaluations, but here we are. Let's wrap this thing up nice.
Yes. There are a lot of people who are really digging in deep on the whole, Sam Hartman's going to get drafted. There's a lot of love. There's more love for Sam Hartman, I think, than what I was expecting out of this whole deal. All right, so Notre Dame linebacker coach Max Bullough shared some thoughts this week on one Jaylen Sneed.
Jaylen Sneed has gone from when we ended whole practice to now, has made the biggest jump maybe of anybody in terms of being locked in terms of playing with football in football position, starting it in a stance, moving with purpose, all those little things that Jaylen knows. If I can do those things, the sky's the limit. If I can focus in on the details and do the little things, I can make the plays. And that's something I'm really proud of him for. He's done it on first, second down. He's done it on third down. We're still working, but he is someone that has flipped the switch and understands what's at stake here.
When did you really kind of see that, switch starting to flip?
As soon as we start spring ball, really. Yes. And I think the competition in the room plays a factor in that, obviously. And we got guys in there that want to play football and are very capable.
So are you willing to bank on a breakout season for Jaylen Sneed after hearing that?
I am willing to break or to bank on a breakout season for Jaylen Sneed. And I liked what Max Bullough said there. He basically said there's a lot of young talent in the room, and I think Jaylen Sneed is actually starting to feel the pressure, right? Like, it's no longer an excuse you're a young guy, or if these younger guys are catching on faster than you, then what's happening, right? Because that's been Jaylen Sneed's biggest kryptonite. Is he just can't consistently X's and O's know what he's doing out there. And that's a huge liability. And so when you have younger guys coming in who are learning on the fly, getting a ton of playing time, I think that naturally pushes someone like Jaylen Sneed to be better. And to be quite honest with you, this is what the defense needs. They need Jaylen Sneed to be, a legit threat at the outside linebacker position. So after hearing him talk about Jaylen Sneed, it actually really, really made me happy and got me excited, because I want to see Jaylen Sneed out there and playing at a high level.
Well, and to hear him talk about that, the switch being flipped for him, and the fact that it was right at the start of spring, he could already see it. I think that's important as well. And I don't think he'd, just be out there bouncing platitudes around, feel like he absolutely means what he was saying. And what's crazy, and I was just I just wrote something about Jaylen Sneed today that'll be coming up on our site here in the near future, but Jack Kaiser is obviously the most experienced current Notre Dame linebacker because he's a sixth-year guy. Jaylen Sneed, who has played all of 18 games in his career, is the second most experienced Notre Dame linebacker behind Jack Kaiser. And I think we're going to see a lot of him. I think he's going to be a Swiss Army knife type guy. When you hear all those different things that he was talking about, they're going to find the right situation that they can use Jaylen Sneed in. And like they've talked about him, at that rover position as a guy who can potentially even stay out there on the field in those third down situations and not have to come off the field, for an extra defensive back and that kind of stuff because of his pass coverage skills. They think that it's gotten that much better, and that hasn't always been the case for Jaylen Sneed. So pretty excited hearing that, and really, excited about seeing this scrimmage on Saturday and then the blue gold game next week as well to kind of see what some of that looks like from Jaylen Sneed. My expectation levels have gone up. So just as of right now, hearing Max Bullough talk about it, I'm with you. I'm banking on a breakout as well from Sneed this season. They need it because of where they are with that linebacker group. Michael, Ian Book and Sam Hartman are apples to oranges. Like, Ian Book getting drafted where he drafted has no bearing on where Sam Hartman gets drafted. It's two different drafts. Teams have different needs, 3-4 years later. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do. Like 6 years of experience doesn't mean anything. He played in a slow mesh system for 5 of those years. That's why he came to Notre Dame this year. And whether he gets drafted or not is completely irrelevant. The only thing he's going to be in somebody's training camp in August, whether he gets drafted or not. And it's a matter of whether or not he proves that he can stick around, which I think he will because of all the stuff that we talked about with the intangibles. Personal issues have nothing to do with what I think about Sam Hartman. I think Sam Hartman, is like Sam Hartman's the kind of guy that you'd want to have just from a personality standpoint, from a brain standpoint, from all those different things. But he's not going to be an NFL starting quarterback. I'll tell you that. His hope and his goal is to be a career NFL backup. That has my personal issues have nothing to do with that. I don't understand why this has become such a hot button issue with Sam Hartman and where he is or isn't going to get drafted.
Yeah, and I liked what you just previously said before this. Him being undrafted is the better route because him and his agent can really find a better fit for him. Like a situation where okay, we really like the way that Sam's skills translate into this offense because this offense is not tailored for someone like Sam Hartman, but it's best compatible for what kind of skills that he has.
Yes. All right, so I'm going to play 2 different cuts from Irish offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock. In the first one, he talks about evaluating the team to identify the best personnel to go on the field. And the second one, he's asked specifically more about Jeremiah Love. So here's the first one.
I think we're in the middle of that, right? So we're halfway through spring, and the evaluation is of everybody on the offensive roster and who presents themselves in a way that we know we can rely on to make consistent plays. And maybe that's Jeremiah Love being more versatile in his role. Maybe that's 2 tight ends. Maybe that's 4 wide receivers. Whoever emerges and proves that they can consistently play winning football for us and be as dynamic as we need, especially the guys on the perimeter to be, we've got to utilize those guys in any way we possibly can. And if that means manipulating personnel groups or, what that looks like, we're kind of in the process of trying to determine that right now.
Okay, so there's the first one from Denbrock talking about identifying the personnel. And I felt like this kind of goes with it a little bit. Here he is talking about Jeremiah Love and that, adding receiver to his duties this year.
I think we're trying to evaluate, is there something where we can play some 2-back stuff and use him out of the backfield a little bit more as a threat, right? He needs to touch the ball, right? And we've got some really good backs, right? Beyond him, he's really good, and we got some guys who are really good beyond him. So it's again, in an effort to get your best 11 guys on the field and give yourself the best opportunity to play against the really good teams as good as you possibly can. You got to have your best players out there. So the more he learns and the more versatile he can become, the more we can use him in different spots. So that's the goal.
So again, there's Mike Denbrock, and I felt like those 2 things kind of went together. Listening to those 2, Jesse, it means blank for what we're going to see from this offense this season.
It means more explosion is what we're going to see out of the offense this season. Mike Denbrock doesn't care about, I need to have, this guy needs to be on the field or this guy needs to be on the field. Denbrock is looking at, okay, who are my playmakers? How can I get them on the field, or get them the most amount of touches as possible? And I loved what he said about the 2-back stuff because that's exactly what I started to go into. You could start Love in 2-back. You can motion him out of the backfield. You can line up as a wide receiver. The more that these guys can do, it's the more versatile the offense is going to be, the more unpredictable the offense is going to be, and the more explosive the offense is going to be. So when you hear stuff like this, it's just really reassuring because Notre Dame is not jamming an offense onto its players. It's allowing its players to dictate more of how the offense
what the offense is going to be.
Is going to be run. And just seeing, okay, this is what my guys are good at. How can I get the ball to them more? And I think that's going to be super refreshing for this offense this season because it's going to lead to more big plays. It's going to lead to more guys in space. and so on and so on.
And I think especially in college, you don't see that. It's like, college coach, this is my system, and this is how you're going to fit into this system. But it's like when you hear him, like Riley Leonard the other day when we were talking to him, when he was talking about the offense, he mentioned 10 personnel, like how the 10 personnel here with Mike Denbrock is similar to what they had at Duke. How many times have we seen 10 personnel over the last 14 years?
Not a lot
at Notre Dame. No, because it was Brian Kelly's offense. I don't remember him going much 10 personnel, and then that offense stuck with Tommy Rees, and you still saw a great deal of that with Jared Parker last year because he was still using so much of the Tommy Rees, Brian Kelly stuff. Craig says, don't put a square peg in a round hole. Exactly. And I just think there's just so many possibilities, I think, that are going to come of this. And with the kind of skill position talent that they've got and a couple of athletes, like whether it's Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price in that backfield and just all these different guys, I think that it's very enticing. And I think we're going to see an offense that looks completely different than what we have become accustomed to seeing here at Notre Dame over the last several years.
Long story short, we're going to see an offense that is catching up with the times in terms of college football, I think.
Yeah.
And I think Chief Brody and I are on the same page. We took some naps after work, and we're both just a little bit of slap happy right now.
Don't put a square hole in a round peg.
Ever since he's got on here, he's just been bing, 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 bing. That's how I feel. I took that nap, and I'm ready to go, baby.
I know. Get the playmakers on the field. Good point.
Doesn't this make you so sad about Chris Tyree last season, though? Because, imagine Chris Tyree in a Tim Brock offense.
If you would have had this kind of philosophy last year. Oh, man. Mike, over under 60 total catches for the running backs combined. I think it'll be over that. Don't you?
So quick math would say 12, 24, 36, 48, 5 catches a game out of your running backs. I'm going to take the under.
You're going to go under?
So
let's see.
I don't count Jeremiah Love lining up in the slot and catching a pass as a running back.
He's still a running back, though. He's still a running back.
Yeah, but in that play, he's a wide receiver. That's why he's been practicing at wide receiver.
But you're going to count him as a running back, though. So I think that'll count. Estimé had 17 last year. Payne had 9. There's 26. Price had 5. There's 31. Ford had 4. There's 35. So 35 last year without any real attempt to get the ball to the running backs.
I think 50. I think 50 is a more reasonable number.
I'm going to go over.
Okay.
I'm going to go over. Because Jeremiah Love potentially is going to get a big part of that, and you're still going to have to count him as a running back because he's also probably going to.
So you're going to go what he's listed by on the depth chart. What? Well, look, even though he's being used as a wide receiver in the play,
he's going to have at least 50 carries, if not 60 carries, as well. So you've got to count him as a running back still if he's carrying the ball that many times. I mean, that's his position group. He's that's where he is.
We'll agree to disagree.
Is Deebo Samuel a running back? No, he's a wide receiver, but he still carries the ball, right?
Yeah, but I feel like carries for a wide receiver are way easier to define than catches for a running back lining up as a wide receiver.
Interesting hill to die on. Craig is with me, by the way. All right, Notre Dame men's basketball player Markus Burton made an announcement on Instagram today. They all make the announcements on Instagram now. Nobody does Twitter in terms of these athletes. But so here's what the freshman point guard posted. Quote, over the past few weeks, I've looked for ways to better my game for my sophomore season. And now this next sentence, he highlighted in gold. So it was sort of like emphasized. While maintaining my eligibility at Notre Dame, I will enter my name into the NBA draft. The valuable feedback I will receive from this experience will pay dividends on and off the court, end quote. So he entered his name for the for the NBA draft. But do you think, after hearing specifically what he said, do you think Burton will be back at Notre Dame next year?
I do think Burton will be back at Notre Dame this next season. I don't think he's going to get a good NBA evaluation. I don't think he's going to put his name in the transfer portal. I think he's going to come back and have a really good second sophomore season at Notre Dame, and he's going to go on to get drafted after that. I think he needs one more season. Put it like this. I thought Blake Wesley was better suited for the NBA, and I thought he should have stayed an extra season, right? And so I get it because you want that feedback, but at the same time, I just feel like you're jumping the gun a little bit. Just be patient, trust the process, trust Coach Shrewsbury, get another year of really solid development, and then put your name in the NBA hat. I just think it's a little bit too premature. But I'm not really overall concerned because I think he's going to be playing again at Notre Dame next season.
I do too. And if, again, reading what he said there, it feels like he wants this evaluation so that he can come back and work on very specific things over the next year or so, get that feedback so he can work on those things and put himself in a position to be drafted a year from now. Because it just, like, where he is right now, he'd be a G League guy.
Yeah.
Right. Like best case scenario, he's drafted in the second round. He had a really nice, like he's undersized to begin with, 5'11". He did some really good things, obviously being the ACC Rookie of the Year and all that kind of stuff. But it just feels like he's mostly in this for the feedback so he can develop his game for a year from now and then look at
I thought, yeah, it was great. He was ACC Player of the Year. But if you remove if you remove Blake Wesley from that team, they would have very similar results to what this Notre Dame team did this season. You know what I mean? I feel like if Markus Burton was that good, I don't think that Notre Dame should have been not as bad as they were because we knew what was going to happen. New head coach, lost a lot of roster turnover. But, if you were that impactful.
If he was NBA ready, then they should have been even better than what
they would have been an NIT team at the very least. You know what I mean? But I think Mike brings up a good point here that it is in terms of talent, this is one of the weaker NBA drafts in a while. So it makes sense. Like I see it at that level. And I think Craig also brings up a good point too. Like he would make more money in NIL than he would as a G leaguer. So like, I don't understand that as well either. Like you're taking a pay cut to go sit in the G League when you could develop another year, make more money, and potentially be, a first or second round pick and make much more money.
I agree. Much better off. And I think that he will. I think he'll be back at Notre Dame next year. I think he'll pull his name back out after he goes through the evaluation process. Fill in the blank. Notre Dame women's basketball forward Nat Marshall entering the transfer portal means blank for Niele Ivey and the Irish.
Nat Marshall entering the transfer portal this week means that Notre Dame is going to have to go to work in the transfer portal led by Niele Ivey. Because you're going to have to tell me the official number. How many scholarship players are they down to?
One. We're thinking exactly alike. That's all it means to me is she's going to have to go to the portal. But
like it just means more work in the portal.
That's exactly it. Okay, so they've got Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles, Sonia Citron, Emma Risch, Cass Prosper. That's, 5 definite returns. Maddie Westbeld expected back. That's 6. Kate Koval, the incoming post-player freshman, makes 7. And so, like Kylie Watson will be back. Her status is a little bit more uncertain because of the injury, but like they started this season with 10 players, 10 available players, not including Olivia Miles, obviously, because she was not available. So like, I expect they're going to go out and get another shooter kind of along the lines of Anna DeWolf.
You're going to get a forward.
Right. So you have another, and then you're going to go out and get at least another post player, if not 2. And so that's like, I would expect them to go out and bring 3 players in the portal.
Well, and I think
shooting guard and a couple forwards for some depth there.
I was going to say I don't know if it would be a true center. I think you would definitely get one true center. I think you get like a stretch 5 combo 4 just someone who's big, a big forward, big body. That's really, all I'm looking for out of that portal. So yeah, I like what you said. You get another shooter, you get 2 more big bodies. One's definitely a center, and one's again probably more like an athletic forward that you'd see.
Chief Brody says it means panic mode, and it is for some people. And I don't know if Chief Brody is actually panicking or if he's just, doing his pot stirring like he's usually doing over there.
He's laying in bed just firing off the comments.
Yeah, I mean, like some people are panicking, but like you've got the number 1 rated post player in the country coming in next year. So if you're Nat Marshall and you've already got your Notre Dame degree and you've already been a bench player for your whole career, do you want to stick around? And then if Kylie Watson does come back next year, do you want to stick around and be the number 3 post at Notre Dame behind that? Because that's what you're going to be. She's already made good NIL money here, so she's got a chance to go on and get more playing time someplace else by going someplace else. Yeah, and Michael Johnson says she's got 2 degrees. Yeah, I mean, she's a very smart young woman, So Mike Huff says, why only 1 recruit for Ivy? I mean, they have been very selective with their recruiting. They're not just padding they're not just taking and reaching on players. They're being very selective with how highly rated those players are. I mean, I think like Emma Risch has probably been the lowest rated of the players, over like since Niele Ivey has come in, or at least over the last 3 years, but she's still like a top 20, she was like right around that number 20, 25 range, something like that, so they're being very selective, and they're also at the same time going out and being selective and strategically using the transfer portal, because you look at like last year, they brought in Watson and Lauren Ebo last year. They brought in Anna DeWolf this year. They brought in Dara Mabry before that. So they're sticking to their guns. They're not reaching on the high school players that they're getting. They're going after very highly rated and highly regarded players who that they've been able to develop the relationships with, specifically Niele Ivey, and they've done well with the transfer portal.
Well, also, the way you have to look at it is you got 3 stud guards. And they're all young. Why stockpile guards when you're set for the next 3 to 4 years? I think she's strategically recruiting the positions that she needs, and then getting, more mature, solidified players in the portal to kind of combine with some of her younger players. I really like the formula, if we're being honest, kind of plugging in, portal players, like, again, to add experience and really complement some of these young athletics, really, really uber talented guards that they have.
Yeah, exactly. And, so Mike says, where was it? She wants a portal program. Every program is a portal program now. Again, she's augmenting the roster
with
transfer portal players. That look at the majority of the roster. Hidalgo, Miles, Citron, Risch, Prosper, Westbeld, Koval. That's 7 right there who they recruited out of high school. And there have been, others as well. That's 7 core. The majority of your roster is still McDonald's All-American types who have, been recruited by this staff. So it's not like they're overly reliant on the transfer portal. They've augmented it when they've needed to with the transfer portal. Matt Lee had this question in earlier. I don't know if Matt's still hanging around or not, but he says there have been rumors about AZ Fudd leaving UConn in the transfer portal. People think the Irish have a shot. If so, do we want her with all of her injuries? I mean, I think you would take a shot on a player like that with the talent that she's got. I don't know if that's like if she's actually hit the portal yet or not, but why not? Like, how big a deterrent would her injury history be to you, Jess? Like, would you want to take a chance on it, especially like considering maybe, like the unfortunate run of injuries Notre Dame has already had the last couple of years? I'm good on it. I think Niele Ivey's got her plan. If she so happens to be at Notre Dame,
sure, but I think Niele Ivey has had like, you know, people have like their 10-year plan in life and stuff like that. I think Niele Ivey has really, she's got it. And when I was listening to you guys on the Lucky Lefty podcast the other day, I thought the comparison to Hurley that, you know, that those guys, you know, Sean Crawford and Malik brought up of, you know, get us now, right? Because I feel like Notre Dame is continuously reloading, right? Like they've got their guards. Okay, we had some injuries and we know we didn't have the size that we needed, but get us now, because once we get these post players, we combine it with our guards, we combine it with the experience out of the portal, a lethal 3-point shooter. Like, get your shots in now, because Notre Dame women's basketball is coming. So I don't think they need all that. I think Niele knows what she needs. I think she's had it. You know, she's got her visions locked in, and she's going to execute. So I don't see the need for any UConn player. Leave UConn players out of here.
Oh, so you're saying leave her? Don't go get it.
They don't need it.
Okay,
don't need it. Niele doesn't need it.
The player that I find the most intriguing this offseason is Liufau King from Pittsburgh. She is in the transfer portal right now, and she's a very athletic post player, averaged a double-double this season. And as of yet, I haven't seen her land any place. That would be interesting to have a one-year player like Liufau King, who averaged a double-double in the ACC, paired up with, you know, a young, very talented Kate Koval, you know, so you wouldn't have to rely solely on her. Like I think that would be very interesting if Notre Dame could find a way to make that happen. That would perk the old ears up, I think. Mike says, what about the Louisville LSU girl?
No.
She would not fit the culture here.
She's burned the bridge. Niele's seen her at Louisville. There's no way.
Yes. I agree with what Michael's saying. Ivy has to be selective. Notre Dame is not for everyone. DK's waking up from his hockey coma, apparently, right now. So, Jess, O.J. Simpson died today. His playing career ended, of course, well before you were born. And the chase that took place when he was accused of killing Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman in 1994, you know, also took place before you were born. So I'm curious, like when you hear the name O.J. Simpson, what do you think of?
Yeah, unfortunately, when I hear O.J. Simpson, I actually, the football career is on the back burner. You know, like I know he was a good running back, but all I think about is the Bronco chase scene, and he's flying down the freeway and he's got 8 police officers behind him. And it's really sad because O.J. Simpson was a tremendous football player. He would go down as a top 10 running back of all time. But yeah, I think of the white Bronco and him literally fleeing, you know, from 8 police officers. That's what comes to mind. And like you said, I wasn't fortunate enough to see the football stuff. All I see are the documentaries and, you know, the Netflix specials and the FX specials about O.J.
Did you see
Simpson.
the O.J. Made in America? Did you watch that?
I did.
Yeah. It was a really good 30 for 30 that they did. Yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to remember, you know, like sort of the tail end of his playing career. Not a lot because he played in Buffalo and the Bills were horrible in the 70s, but obviously, you know, he was one of the best running backs in the NFL at that point, and at that point was the only back to ever run for over 2,000 yards in a season. And then it segued into the Hertz commercials, you know, running through the airport and all that kind of stuff, you know, go Juice go, and, you know, and then like the movie career. But, you know, really all I think of now when I hear the name O.J. Simpson first, like some people were saying, you know, one is the white Bronco. And I was actually, and we were talking yesterday about how I'm not the biggest NBA fan now, but I was at a sports bar, and I think most people probably remember where they were when that happened. I was in a sports bar in Kansas City with some friends, and the Knicks Rockets NBA Finals game was on. And then all of a sudden we're sitting there and this split screen comes up, and there's this white Bronco, and you see this chase going on. And, because it's a sports bar, there's no sound up. So it's like, what is going on? And, you find out what's going on. Or, I remember going home and it's still on TV and all that kind of stuff. And, like the glove and the whole thing. And that's unfortunately, I think what, OJ to me is remembered for and should be remembered for, whether you believe that he should have gotten off or not. But he is gone now. A lot of people think, though, that
I didn't even know he had cancer.
I didn't either.
Like, I didn't even know this was a possibility. You know what I mean? Like, when I saw that today, I was like, wow. Like, I had no clue that he was sick, that this like him potentially dying was even something that was on the table. You know what I mean?
Right. Fill in the blank. Apple TV continues to stream Major League Baseball games. They've got a new feature, though, this season. And I've been meaning to talk about this and finally was able to bring it up today. Viewers now on these games have the option, using their remote control, to listen to their home team's radio broadcasts instead of the network TV announcers with just the click of a button. This makes you say blank.
This makes me say that Apple TV shouldn't broadcast baseball. What's the point of broadcasting baseball on your own network if you're just going to click over and listen to Book Sciambi on the Marquee Network while the Cubs are playing? It's just dumb. I just think it's really dumb that Apple TV is offering this service, because even if you're the one streaming the game, you're still listening to the other broadcasters. So just don't, go unless you have every single game on Apple TV. You know what I mean? Like, it's because all Apple TV does is has the free game of the day, right? But if you're not a fan of that team or a baseball nerd like me, then who really cares, right? And so it's like, just go back to allowing the teams to be streamed not on Apple and where they're originally from. So I don't know.
So you're complaining about it. Okay, so this, like Jason says he would love it for Notre Dame games. And I've been saying all along, with it, like where we are from a technology standpoint, this should be an option for any sports broadcast on TV, whether it's Apple or your network TV or wherever. They should be able to offer this option to anyone. And, like the downside would be, okay, well, you can't see like the TV commercials. Like during the commercial breaks, like the regular stuff could still pop up. I think that this would be awesome. Like the whole turn the sound down, you listen to your home team's radio broadcast and all that kind of stuff. Not everybody wants to hear the network TV announcers, and most people obviously complain about the network TV announcers. So I think this is an awesome innovation, and I think that it should be offered for everybody, like on every broadcast, like home team radio broadcasts. Chief wants to see me call Notre Dame football games on YouTube. Okay, well, I'll do that.
You'll dial that up.
Right. So I think it's great. I love it. If you could buy stock in any athlete for the next 10 years, who would it be?
Oh, since I'm a nerd, I'll give you two. I'll give you one for football and one for baseball.
Okay.
Jackson Holiday in baseball.
Where are you going with baseball? That's right.
Caleb Williams in football.
Interesting. I think, like the stock on both of those guys is already pretty high right now. Like,
yeah, I think it's going to get even higher.
Okay. So are
you looking for someone that's like a penny stock right now that's going to blow up?
It doesn't have to be. I mean, it's your answer. So like that's your answer. Caleb Williams is going to be the number 1 overall draft pick. So you're pretty confident in Caleb Williams. You don't think that he's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of hype now and a lot of stock, but I mean, how many first round quarterbacks have we seen be busts? Like, there's more busts at the quarterback position in the first round, the number 1 overall pick, than there is success. And I think Caleb Williams is he's getting a lot of backlash, and I wouldn't say hate, but maybe questioning his skills. I think he's going to go on and be he's going to be a top 5 quarterback. Like he's going to be okay. He's not going to be top. Well, how do I put this? He's not going to be Patrick Mahomes, but he's going to be. I think he's going to be right behind Patrick Mahomes. I think he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league for a long time.
Wow. Okay. A lot of people thought that with Justin Fields. Michael says Arch Manning. Got some Hannahs, Juju's, Jeremiah Love. Those are good. You listened to me on the Lucky Lefty podcast the other day. I'm going with CJ Carr. That's who I'd buy.
Okay.
I think he's a penny stock right now. He's
Okay.
He's fourth on the depth chart for Notre Dame, but I think we're going to see monumental things out of him within the next few years, and that will springboard him to his NFL career. So CJ Carr is my stock for the next 10 years. That's where I'm going.
Nice.
Okay, so Brian Curtis, who hosts a podcast for The Ringer, had this question this week. He asked the guy who was on with him, if you could go back in a time machine to the 80s and ask Spike Lee and Jim Nantz, which of them would be more surprised that they're doing commercials with each other today? Who do you think would be more surprised if you went back and asked Spike Lee and Jim Nantz?
I think Spike Lee would be more surprised. Yeah. I don't know how, what solid argument I can stand on with this, but if I'm picking between the two, I feel like Spike Lee would never feel like he would find his way, entangled with Jim Nantz.
Right. Spike would think that he had lost all street cred, I think, at that point.
You're right. I think that was the best. That's a good way to put what I was trying to maybe get to.
Right. Exactly.
And I think Jim would be like, whoa, I get to do this with Spike Lee. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's Jim Nantz finagled his way into doing the starting lineups for the national championship games for forever while he was on TV. And then he stepped aside and they actually let the guy who was the actual PA announcer do it, which, it's oh, you're the PA announcer for the national championship game, but nobody gets to Nantz, I think from an ego standpoint, he sort of plays that, oh, I don't have an ego, but he's got an ego kind of thing. So I think that he would be right in there. I don't think Spike Lee would have ever believed it. Chief Brody wants to know if we think the Notre Dame men will make the tournament next year. I don't, but I think they'll be at least a lot closer to getting there than what they were this year. I think that they'll at least be in the NIT next year. What do you think?
I think they'll be right on the brink of the tournament, but I think they'll
be
bubble team. Yep.
Okay. We're along the same lines. Thanks for the super chat. ND Milton fan, he says, what favors do we need to call in to get an interview with Harry Hiestand? Are you all worried about Texas A&M opener next year? I'll be more worried about Texas A&M in the opener if a guy with one career start has to make the start over the guy with more experience who they brought in this year. But I mean, I'm more concerned about the environment, I think, than I am the actual team that they will be playing. I'm not saying it's going to be a pushover game. I think the environment is the biggest thing, but all we heard about when Notre Dame went to Virginia Tech a few years back was Enter Sandman and all that crap, and that turned out to be nothing. Once you get a lead, I think all that environment stuff goes out the window.
I'm more worried about environment and Texas A&M being jazzed up with a new coach in its opening game. You tend to forget about all the past struggles in the very first game of the season. It's a clean slate. You're at home. It's a great environment. You have a great new head coach. And so there's nothing to lose when you play in game one like that. That's what I'm more nervous about. Texas A&M has the athletes. It has the studs. But I don't think they'll be there year one, but they'll think they're going to be there year one. They're going to have the mentality that they can go out and beat anyone. So that's what I'm most worried about.
Yeah. And this will be the thing, Chief, worried about the away form last year. Marcus Freeman has done a good job of correcting whatever the issue has been, from one year to the next. That'll be the big thing that they've got to get cleaned up next year, and they'll find out right away when they go to A&M. But that will be, that's the issue right now, right? All right. Well, we went for a while tonight, Jess.
Yes, we went longest show of the week.
Now, there's a rumor Vince could be back tomorrow. There's he's got, of course, more duties, and he's working on trying to figure out logistically if he's going to be able to do it. Jesse cannot because he has other things going on. So if there's no show tomorrow, you blame Vince. It's as simple as that.
I like that.
That's what it comes down to. That's right. All right. Thanks for being here. As always, maybe we talk to you tomorrow. Maybe we talk to you next Monday after we get to see a Notre Dame scrimmage on Saturday. And I'm sure Brian is going to be doing a Saturday show after the scrimmage as well. So either way, we will talk to you later. Thanks again. Hit the like button before you leave. We'll talk to you on IB Nation Sports Talk.